people know that they have challenges, and even when it comes to money or marketing or whatever it is. But if they don't lean in to say, hey, I think I've got this perceived problem. And it's not enough that I have a him or a her, fill in the blanks in whatever area of expertise they're in. If you have the questions, ask them. Because if
Yeah.
you don't ask them, they could, and they probably are costing you in our industry and in our world, minimum of hundreds of thousands of dollars, if
Yep.
not to the tunes, of course, of millions. So just
Yep.
ask the questions, and we encourage all of our clients. The more questions they have, the more we need to answer them, because guess what? It's only after we address those questions that they can actually elevate their status to the very next level and graduate to the next category.
Welcome to Amplify Your Business, everyone. This is the podcast where we dive deep into the stories, strategies, and insights of successful entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Lance Johnson, and today we're joined by Eunicia Peret, a seasoned strategy consultant with nearly 2 decades of experience who made the bold transition from working with the giants like Deloitte to founding her own wealth strategy consulting firm, Excelstra. After years of serving at the highest levels of corporate consulting, Eunicia now helps business owners and executives optimize their wealth strategies across multiple dimensions, from tax optimization to investment portfolio analysis and comprehensive legacy planning. Her unique approach brings together traditionally siloed financial services to create cohesive strategic solutions for her clients. Welcome, Eunicia.
Lance, it's such a pleasure to be here.
I'm just thrilled because this is one of the topics, right, that a lot of business owners don't really know how to navigate because in the early days, we don't have a lot of wealth oftentimes. And so we're building that. And so to have somebody like you on our show today to talk to us a little bit about those strategies, but also to share your experience growing your business, this is absolutely fantastic. So I'm really excited.
I am too. Let's have some fun.
Okay, so your journey from corporate consulting to entrepreneurship kind of fascinates me because, there's a lot that you're walking away from when you're stepping back from working with those big companies, especially in the senior roles that you were in. And so I'd like you to walk us through that pivotal moment when you decided, you're going to make that transition, you're going to make the jump.
There were actually multiple things that went into that pivotal moment. One of them for us was what was happening with our money. And because I was working, even though I was on the strategy consulting side, I was working for multiple consultancies, large institutions that were also public auditors. And because of that, there were a lot of rules and regulations around how money can and cannot be invested. And so because of those rules and regulations, our financial team did not really want to be dealing with some of those things. So I felt I constantly was being sent back to what they called the black box to figure out what can and can we not do. And on top of that, because my husband and I really enjoyed alternative investments, as an example, real estate, what we also found was that the financial advisors were not exactly incentivized to say, well, gee, let's welcome your real estate portfolio into the mix, when we know that that's not exactly how they get compensated. So when we had a lot of different questions and financial strategies that were coming to a point where we needed to make decisions, the answers were not very easy to find. And so we sat down, we did get some support from, individuals here and there in different areas and different areas of expertise when it comes to financial planning. And I told my husband, if we've got this problem, be willing to bet that a lot of other people do too. So I started geeking out and we fixed our problem, started helping other individuals. The other thing that was also happening during the same exact time, I realized that as a mom, I was never going to have the time back with my children that I had lost in traveling so much and constantly being gone. And my daughter asked me a very pivotal question. She said, Mom, can you help me understand how a successful businesswoman like yourself cannot find a job in Atlanta? Because that's where we lived at the time. And it just dawned on me that my office was in Atlanta. It had
Mm.
been in Atlanta for pretty much my entire career. The challenge, though, was in order to demand the kind of salary that I was making, there is no corner office that would just give me the opportunity to show up whenever I wanted, have all the time I wanted at home, and still make the kind of money that I wanted to make. And so I realized that it doesn't matter how much we give to a large organization. We definitely, there are some amazing benefits, but at the end of the day, you're building it for somebody else. And because I had realized what can be and should be done on the financial side, and how our problems, our solution to our own problems was a similar solution to what others could benefit from, and that huge question, I started thinking about, well, gee, is this what I want to do when I grow up? I don't know how many times we get to ask that in our lives, but it was a very, very pivotal moment. And as you can see, a lot of different things came in right around the same time. So the decision was, it had become a no-brainer.
So many entrepreneurs, though, they really struggle with that shift from earning a paycheck to paying themselves. How did you navigate through the mental transition of that? And what advice would you give to others who are thinking about or are in the process of making that journey, basically that transition themselves?
That is a phenomenal question. And it's actually one of the hardest things that I've
Mm-hmm.
probably done in my life. Going from, to your point, having that steady paycheck, knowing I was going to come in, to the question for me was, well, gee, do I even know how to pay myself? Now,
Mm.
for me, the one of the things that helped a lot was the fact that my husband had been a business owner and entrepreneur for pretty much our entire married life. And I saw him shifting out of working in industry and for himself. I had someone who was he was my biggest backer. He had trust and faith in me when I did not know which way was up. And I
Yeah.
never forget him telling me, I need you to understand that where you're at right now is not what defines you. Because when you're spending money on marketing and you've got nothing coming in, and you're looking at your bank account and you're thinking, not sure if
Yeah.
this is the right thing. How long can this be going on for? It's hard. But I'll tell you, the first time I had money coming into the business bank account, it was such a celebration. I'll
Yeah.
never forget, I came back home and I told my husband, oh my God, I got paid. And of course, when we did our taxes, it was like, hey, I think I did pretty good. And he
Yeah.
looked at me, he said, congratulations. We will not talk about your expenditures. But listen, I learned that I could pay myself. And that was a huge, huge thing. However, you were asking, how did I make that transition? What I can tell you is that outside of having my husband, who has been such a huge support and huge backbone to that transition, I could not have done it if I hadn't taken a chance on myself to hire outside support. I had marketing
Mm.
consultants on my team, I had business coaches on my team, even though it was during a period of time when income was not anywhere near what I would have needed it to be at. I knew that in order to get to the next level, I couldn't do it on my own
Yeah.
because of those ups and downs and the challenges and the questions, and frankly not knowing how to navigate the world of business ownership and entrepreneurship. And
Yeah.
those have been just really the needle movers for me.
So the advice would be to get some support. And I'm just curious on that part of it. Like, you've like you said, you've worked with coaches, consultants over the years, right from the early days. How did you identify the right people to work with? And then can you expand on a little bit more in terms of the impact that they've had specifically on your business?
You might find this as a funny story, but I actually heard someone talking on in a Facebook ad. And specifically at the time,
Mm.
it was around, you can do this, you can become a real estate investor. Funny enough, my husband's in real estate. And I'll never forget, they had the question was, do you qualify to work with us? And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, what do you mean? Do
Yeah.
I qualify? Of course I qualify.
Who are you to
Who are
say?
you to? And as a marketer, you know that that's a marketing strategy, which is why
Yeah.
I don't like to use it on clients. Like, listen, I know that what we give away is true gold. People either realize it or they don't, because I don't like those tactics, but it
Yeah.
worked on me. All right. So Of course, I got insights into what was needed to become part of this mastermind. And I went to my husband and I'll never forget, I said, how many transactions did you do this year? XYZ. It was more than three times what these guys were asking. I said, good, we're done. We got this. So guess what? We got it. We got into this mastermind. And of course, I brought my husband along because he's the real estate guru. And it was about a year and a half. I spoke with the owner of that mastermind, and he's a very renowned figure. And I said, I don't think that this is where I'm supposed to be. And he
Hmm.
looked at me and he said, tell me more. I said, listen, my heart bleeds finance. This is great. I've made money, fixing and flipping and buying and holding. We've done that even before coming here. Something's got to give. Now, what I didn't mention that was that in that process, they ran a competition during the very first mastermind, and my husband and I naturally we came up as the number one team by
Awesome.
far, considering the other teams, and we got invited to the upper level mastermind, which was kind of a very exclusive, much smaller group. So now that we were in this group, again, foreshadowing about a year and a half later, when I had that conversation, the individual said, I 100% agree, Eunicia, not because you're not good at what you do, but because it's very clear that everything you do rolls right back to, okay, this is great, but people need more. They want, like, your clients want more, and you're constantly aching at, you want to be more comprehensive versus just a one trick pony in real estate. And so at that point in time, I told my husband, I said, you've got the real estate, I can still play, I can still appreciate it, and I'm so positioned to help my clients think through their own portfolios, even when they have alternative investments such as real estate, because of that expertise. But it was a pivotal point where I came back and I went back to what I had done my entire career, which was finance.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious also, because you've worked with a lot of different entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs across a wide range of varieties. Are there any common traits or practices that you've observed amongst these people that you would be able to, identify as things that make them successful in building and preserving wealth?
So common traits, I'm happy that you could qualify that it's what's made them successful.
Yeah.
One of the things that are making, or I've seen, our clients and just individuals in general that are finding new levels of success is when they're saying, you know what, I'm smart enough, I do exceptionally well in what I do with my business, but I need the support. Whether it
Mm,
be a company like Excelstra, or a team like ours to help them, for example, when it comes to their financials, or it be, hey, you know what, I might be good. I've heard this from many people, but you know what? I really don't need the help to do a website or to do my marketing strategy. I got that. I took some courses and I'm good. I can design it all on my own. And it's like, our most successful clients, they all have teams representing them, just exactly like what you're doing. I'm so fascinated, Lance, by your approach, because it works.
mm,
But the reality is, people that do not have the success that they truly ultimately desire, they shy away from the expert support that they would need, because they feel like they're too smart to ask for help. And in turn, what ends up happening is they end up losing. On the contrary, the people that have found the biggest success, they focus, for example, I'll talk about finances because that's my area of expertise. They know that, listen, if we need to focus on the finances, and they know they might be dangerous in how much they know, but they can't execute against all of those strategies. And so when they have the proper support, guess what, now they're seeing returns, now they're seeing growth, now they're seeing strategies that are actually taking them from where they are to where they truly want to be, again, because they've
yeah.
got the right support in place. It's no different whether we're dealing with marketing or we're dealing with legal or we're dealing with anything else. It's those people that are saying, hey, I have achieved success, but I'm okay bringing in the support. And then the other thing is people that
Mm,
are not afraid to do the hard work. Whether it be, again, marketing or finance or whatever it is, we need to be able to look the problem in the eye to say, listen, I may not need to know, and we're not asking even our clients, I don't need them to know how to do what we do. That's not the point. But if they're not empowered, my joke with them is, listen, you will never be bamboozled, upsold, or sisold by fancy finance terminology, because you will also know all of the things that you've been missing out on. Why? Because these are things that nobody else talks about. So as long as the individual is willing to say, okay, I will step into this area of unknown with the right support, the level of relief that they get in just the awareness and the knowledge that, oh my gosh, I know more than I would have ever wanted to know. But it's not because it's imposed on them. It's because guess what? Now they're able to talk about things at a totally different level.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
that those two things are very, very important.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? Like it's no surprise that it starts with that openness to learning to support yourself with people who have been there before, because we can't be knowledgeable about everything. We're not experts on everything, right? And so there's a reason why I take my car into the garage to get fixed and I'm not doing it at home, right? Sure, I might be able to, watch some YouTube videos and try to figure out how to change my alternator, but it's A, not a great use of my time, and B, I'm probably going to make some mistakes along the way. And when we talk about finances, when we talk about wealth generation, you make a few mistakes along the way, and that has a tremendous impact on what that end number is going to be, right? Because it's all compound,
100%.
it's all working for it on itself, building upon that, right?
100%. It's the opportunity cost, to your point. It's the time, it's the opportunity cost. It's what are the mistakes that you're making that you're unconsciously, that you don't even know that they're happening. I'll give you an example. Just earlier today, in preparation with the conversation with one of our clients that we've been together for going on 5 years now, I was looking at, because we always want to make sure if there's no value add, if we're not a value add to our clients, we will never tell them we need to work together. So I'm looking through their numbers, and in just one strategy alone between the husband and the wife, I'm literally looking at my numbers here, just the husband and wife, we were able to deliver straight to their bottom line an additional growth to the tune of $1.3 million.
Yeah, that's massive.
That's huge. So
Yeah.
I use these numbers to even reground ourselves, because the numbers sometimes seem so unreal. And here's the deal. When we had to change that specific strategy, it was a strategy that it was one of the really close friends that they put him in. And it was so botched up and it was so upside down that I literally went to multiple experts that are in our field to say, listen, I don't know if I'm looking right at these numbers, because I've never seen anything this bad. And
Yeah.
so, sure enough, it was all validated. I mean, the numbers are the numbers, but I just wanted to make sure that we have the additional validation. And when I spoke with the clients, this was again 4 years ago, for the first time looking at those numbers, what was versus what could be, they said, so Eunicia, what we're seeing is that not only did we have the wool pulled over our heads or eyes, but we don't know who to trust. And my
Yep.
guidance to them was you can't trust anyone. And by the way, I'm not even asking you to trust me. I'm just asking you to trust the process, which you've already validated, and I'm asking you to trust the numbers.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. And so
Yeah.
that's when we see that, that's one of the biggest things. But, people need to just be willing to say, okay, I need a little bit of help. Not because I'm not smart, not because I don't know it. I don't have the time, and this is not my area of specialty.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I just really appreciate what you were saying earlier before when you were drawing some parallels to if you're marketing or whatever, because as a marketing agency, I'm seeing it just applies exactly the same in the sense that you have people, we have people who come to us who don't understand or don't have the expertise, and while it's not rocket science, none of this is. It's a matter of working with people who have the systems, who understand the numbers, understand the aspects that you have to, the levers that you can control, basically, to have those outsized gains, whether that's from a wealth management standpoint or whether that's from a business marketing standpoint. Yeah, it's fascinating. I never thought about that before. So
I will say that something to what you just said, because I
yeah,
do want to give you huge kudos here. I was truly in awe the first time that you and I met, because having worked with so many marketing companies before, I absolutely love the strategy and the approach that you guys take. And to your point, it may not be rocket science, but one small thing that gets done wrong, and
Yep.
it will cost individuals tens of thousands of dollars in just cost alone. Forget about the fact that they won't get the return back. And we see
Yep.
that oftentimes where people go, well, but maybe we'll do it next year, and maybe, but I've got a him or I've got a her. This is the biggest thing that we see in finances. But I've got a him or I've got a her. It's like, okay, when you know as an individual, you know if you have big questions, and you saw it even in our conversation, off when we spoke last time. I knew the areas that we had challenges in. People know that they have challenges in, even when it comes to money or
Mm,
marketing or whatever it is. But if they don't lean in to say, hey, I think I've got this perceived problem. And it's not enough that I have a him or a her, fill in the blanks in whatever area of expertise they're in. If you have the questions, ask them. Because if
yeah.
you don't ask them, they could, and they probably are costing you, in our industry and in our world, minimum of hundreds of thousands of dollars, if
Yep.
not to the tunes, of course, of millions. So just
Yep.
ask the questions, and we encourage all of our clients. The more questions they have, the more we need to answer them, because guess what? It's only after we address those questions that they can actually elevate their status to the very next level and graduate to the next category.
Yeah, I mean, this is a trait I think that's common amongst everybody who is successful. Is they're curious, right? They want to understand or try to understand. They ask the right questions. They probe a little bit deeper. They don't have to be experts, but it's knowing, I guess, that not necessarily even knowing the right question to ask. Because sometimes I'll say, and I had this just the other day. So a software provider for project management, we were looking at potentially moving away from our project management tool, and we invest thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in it every year, and it's core to our business. And so I was evaluating this alternative, had a meeting with their sales manager, and partway through, I'm like, okay, so I've got through all of the questions I have, but I'm probably not asking some questions that you probably have heard before from people like me. So tell me, what have I not asked you yet, right? That I should have asked. And I think that's a really powerful question too for anybody working with any expert in another industry.
That is a
I
very, very powerful question. So much so
yeah.
that this takes me back to my Deloitte days, Deloitte University, when MBA students would come through. One of their case studies it was basically role playing with partners and senior management to get them ready to be in front of clients. And you knew who knew their stuff by the types of questions that they asked, whether it was an individual or team. And that was one of the things we always looked for. Who is asking the question of, well, I really appreciate all the information you've given me. Is there anything else I should be thinking about? Is there
Yeah,
anything I should be asking you? So I just so love you saying that, because it doesn't matter what individuals do or what it applies to. There's a lot of power in asking that last question. Some people would
sure.
find it probably being too vulnerable. I would say it's very strategic. And I
Yeah,
love the fact that you brought it up.
yeah. So, looking ahead, what emerging trends or challenges are you seeing on the horizon that business owners should be preparing themselves for in terms of wealth strategy and business optimization?
Well, the ever changing, or potentially the foreseeable changing tax environment,
Yeah,
tax landscape is probably going to be something that will keep a lot of individuals awake at night. And what I tell them is, listen, oftentimes people will say, well, gee, should we go to Puerto Rico? Should we go elsewhere to minimize tax exposure? Or should we just like literally flat out leave the country? There are other individuals saying, hey, move to Italy because you're going to pay less taxes. It's
yeah,
going to catch up. And so what we tell our clients is that we have to be aware of some of the things that are coming down on the horizon. The tax platform and landscape obviously will probably change, but not losing sight of the fact that as long as you have the right support in place, you're still going to be fine, because there's always going to be a way to maximize and optimize what you're dealing with. The biggest thing is understanding what are those trends, how will they be impacting, and when they're getting ready to impact, how do you go about them? A good example is defense and reporting. There are a lot of, I see emails from a lot of attorneys saying, hey, this is really bad and here's what's going to happen and you can be fined up to $500 a day. It's all true, but it's almost a scare tactic to get
Mhm.
individuals to pick up the phone and just say, hey, please do it for me. Guess what?
Yep.
At least the CPAs that we work with, they're equipped to handle that for the clients. Our clients are not freaking out about it because like, oh, it's we have to do it, it's part of what needs to be done, it will be done, it will be handled by the team. But that's something that has gotten so many individuals scared, and because of that fear factor, they just, are going out, and some of them are spending as much as $500 to $750 per filing, and they have multiple companies. That amounts to a lot of money. Should it be that expensive? No, you can even do it on your own. What I recommend that they do, please don't. You're going to have a lot of questions, and it might, trigger other things down the line. But you also don't have to pay those types of fees. Get yourself educated. So again, whatever the things that might be coming down the pipeline are, just have the right support team in place and know the people who are the people that you can rely on.
Hmm. Yeah, really good advice. One of the things that you mentioned earlier on, just switching gears a little bit to more your experience as an entrepreneur, was how your husband was, a massive supporter of you, but he's also works with you in the business too, right?
No,
No?
his
Oh, not at
business
all.
is he's 100% real estate. He's real estate
Okay.
business is he's real estate business. Excelstra is my third
Your
baby, I
baby.
could say. It's funny because sometimes I bring the children into the discussion. We bring our children into the discussions. We want to give them an opportunity to learn early on, and we joke about the fact that even though we provide support and sometimes strategic guidance on very key things that we're evaluating for the businesses, we found that it is, while we enjoy working together, it's also our styles are so different that we find a lot more peace to for him to run his business the way he runs his business, and I run the business the way that I run it. So much so that oftentimes he'll say, and I've done XYZ, and I'm looking at him like, can you explain that to me? It's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, you know what? It's probably better I don't. So, separate
No,
businesses.
yeah, no worries. Yeah, for some reason in our earlier conversation, I thought I recalled you saying that you guys had worked together, but I think you were talking about exactly what you just mentioned, which was just that you guys have different work styles and that. I'm curious. In that earlier conversation that we had, you did talk a little bit about um, businesses, or sorry, some of your competitors, some of the other people in the space. They really approach things from a silo perspective. So whether that's trusts, life insurances, or investment vehicles, whatnot, everything's kind of siloed up. Your approach is different than that. I'm wondering if you could just explain your cohesive strategy a little bit more. So,
Absolutely. We take very much what one of our clients early on said, very much of a quarterback approach. We know that the clients that we work with, they're successful business owners. They are diverse and complex in the way that they handle both their personal and their business finances. And so what we've identified is that, and it's not just us, the industry as a whole, exactly as you articulated it, is very siloed. And so what we identified early on is that with each silo that happens, there are huge gaps. Huge. Think of them as almost like little. Some are bigger, some are smaller craters. If you were thinking about an asphalt, right? You pour the water. That water is going to seep right through. It's the same thing with money. Money literally gets siphoned in between each of those um, areas where there is that lack of cohesion. And so what we've set out to do is to say, okay, gee, how do we make sure that balls don't get dropped and that everyone on the client's financial team works in a cohesive environment and in an energetic way for the benefit of the client?
yep.
Because then we can minimize those losses. And I'll give you a perfect example from a legal side. We are not attorneys, but we're probably a lot more dangerous when it comes to how we interact with our clients than most attorneys do. On
Mm,
an earlier call with a client, just even earlier today, I was asking him, I said, hey, that trust that you guys have, you got married. Did you update it to make sure that your wife is part of the trust? He said, yes, we did. Check. I said, okay, did you put all of these personal accounts into the trust? He's like, what do you mean? Because it was not our one of our legal teams that they had the trust well before we started working together.
Yeah.
So they used whoever they used. Said, well, didn't your attorney tell you about this? He's like, no. I said, okay, well, let's involve the attorney and figure out how do they prefer, because obviously that's a huge thing. How do they prefer to treat things? And then the conversation came up around two properties that they own, rental properties. Right now they're in their own names, and he said, okay, so do I put this and do we do an LLC and then we put it into a trust? Do we just put it in the trust? Do we put it in the trust and then do an LLC? And then, like, did your attorney not talk to you about any of this? Meaning,
Hmm.
what's personal goes into this trust based on the type of trust that they have. What's business stays in a business. How do you think about it from a legal and liability standpoint? And so the client said, okay, so what are the questions that I need to ask the attorney? And because
Yeah.
of what we do, we said, listen, why don't we organize a meeting? Let's make sure that your attorney knows that we're not poking and prying. It's really we're working together to make sure that everything gets done. And that's
Yep.
just talking about trust. Can you imagine by the time we're talking about integrated investments, traditional, non-traditional, we're talking about accounting, who does the taxes, how do you do tax strategies? CPAs don't do tax strategies typically. How do we minimize the taxes? How do we optimize what's happening on the financial side? And then we're not even talking about how do even financial services get sold, because everybody loves to sell something. So what we tell our clients is, listen, when you come and you work with us, please don't expect that we'll be talking products for at least the first until at least after the first couple of months of us working together, because we first need to understand just how complex is your situation. What even do you need this money to do for you? And even at that point in time, we're not talking about products, we're talking about strategies to figure out what works versus what doesn't. And then we'll figure out what next looks like, because the traditional financial services takes the approach of, okay, you could be benefiting from this, from that, and for the other. And by the way, all of those are products, but they're called strategies. We truly take the approach of, we need to figure out the strategies, and then the products will reveal themselves. And
Hmm.
then the last but not least is, okay, once we get to that point, we talked about the $1.3 million earlier, is that was the lack of design, or the awful design in one particular type of product for husband and wife. So
Yeah.
now that the products are coming up as part of the discussion, financial advisors don't like to talk about the fact that some of those products, most of them, are significantly bloated with fees. And so what we do is we actually show our clients, here's what good, here's what bad, here's what ugly looks like. And unfortunately, everybody's our ugly is everybody else's utopia. And what
Yeah.
that translates to for clients is small fortunes lost through those creators. They just get siphoned and absorbed, and the client doesn't even know. And
Hmm.
that's really, really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm hearing from you then, if I was going to distill the advice that you've unpacked for us today, it's, start as early as possible. Yesterday would be better than today. Surround yourself with people that that you can trust and that have the expertise. Ask a ton of questions, right? Even if you're feeling that it's not necessarily the most intelligent thing to ask it anyway, because you never know where that question is going to go. And then the other one is really make sure you're looking at everything in a very holistic approach, right? Everything is interconnected when it comes to wealth. And there's so many decisions that are going to have a massive ramification in the results that you're going to be able to attain. Am I missing anything?
No, I would say to kind of put the a beautiful lid on that is the best time to have planted a tree would have been something like 15, 20 years ago. The
Yeah.
next best time is today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it, and it's so true, right? Like it's so true. It's one of those things where we always think, well, not always anymore. For myself, anyway. When I was younger, I always used to think, oh, the time horizon's, it's long stretching out there. And now at this age, I definitely am looking at it, going like, yeah, no, that was really silly. I didn't do that, 15 years ago or whatever the case was. Yeah.
Unfortunately,
So,
once it pivots, it's hard to go back. And at that point in time, we have a tendency of living with regrets. And what I
yeah,
tell folks all the time is, you've done what you could. do not look back with regrets. Give yourself a pat on the back for the accomplishments that you have put forth and you have achieved, and just be more strategic and more focused on what is next. And if you do that, it won't take away from what wasn't done, but at least it will give you the opportunity to say, "Oh my gosh, I'm actually positioned to be in a much better place than if I didn't do anything about it." And it helps compensate for that lack of what could have, should have, would
Yeah.
have.
I really, really like that, because I think that is a thing that happens to a lot of people, where they go, oh man, I messed up so bad. I didn't get that done or whatever. And so then you feel defeated, and then there's a chance that you don't actually change anything. You don't take that initiative to actually start to get things on track. And I think you're right. Like, we have to forget about the past, and we just have to go, you know what? It's brighter days ahead. So if I do it now, this is what the impact of that's going to be. I like that.
100%. Yes.
So now, obviously the other thing that I would put a real nice cap onto this, conversation would be that they should be working with you. So if somebody did want to connect with you to, have a consultation, find out what you can be doing for them, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
The best way for them to connect with us is using our website, even though right now we are in the process of updating our website, but it's still there. It's www.excelstra.com. That's Excel. STRA.com, or on social media you can look for Eunicia Peret. Message us there. We can get you on our calendars and answer any questions that you might have. And what I would say is, if you've listened to this podcast and you do have questions, I'm very serious when I say there is no such thing as a stupid question.
Yep.
But the sooner you ask those questions, the sooner you're truly going to feel more liberated, and your overall financial strategy will have a chance to see and benefit from what next looks like.
100%. And I also should mention too that you have a podcast that people can tune into. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where they can find it?
Absolutely. The podcast is named Your Business, Your Next Level. And on the podcast, we really don't talk about Excelstra. What we do is a platform where successful business owners get to come and basically share with our audience what are their lessons learned, what are the things that have made them successful. The reason behind the podcast is, just truth be told, we're trying to raise awareness behind what we do, because a lot of people lean in and they go, is that a thing? It's like, listen, we'll tell you a little bit about who we are, but the podcast is not about that. That's in the pre-podcast interview phase. And then truly the idea behind the podcast is individuals that are at that level of success, once they've become super successful, they're in the multi-7-figure realm. What we're finding is that too many of them are finding themselves on this island of success, as I call it. And it just, the more success that we have, the smaller the island becomes, because fewer people resonate with that level of success. There's a lot of animosity at that point in time as well. And so it's a way for us to spread the knowledge that, listen, just because you're successful does not mean that you're on an island of your own. There are other people out there that are struggling with some of the same things that you might be thinking are silly or crazy, but they're not. And so it's our way to give back to our target clients.
Fantastic. And they can find it on any of the major podcasting platforms, I presume?
Yes, any of the major podcasting platforms. Your business, your next level.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eunicia. I really appreciate you taking the time today to come in and share your wisdom with our audience. I know that there's going to be people in the audience who are going to take some of this and actually start applying it and see their wealth really grow because of it. So thank you for that. And for those of you who are really interested in this episode, enjoyed it, and you want to check out some other episodes, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. That's where you're going to find the stories of entrepreneurs, but also some expert advice, just like Eunicia has provided with us here today. So thank you, everybody. Have a prosperous day.